Hey there! You're watching a video about the important events in the second half of the Dutch Revolt. I'm going to talk about everything that happened from the murder of William of Orange until the end of the revolt in 1648. I want to go back quickly to where we left off in the last video. I talked about the three important causes of the fight between the Spanish Empire and the Dutch provinces. Between 1566 and 1684, a lot of things happened. Margaret of Parma gave in to the demands of the Beggars' Petition, which then led to the Hagepreken, and the Hagepreken led to the iconoclastic fury, or Beeldenstorm. After which King Philip II sent the Duke of Alva and his army to regain control over the Netherlands. This aggression of Alva and the violence of the Spanish soldiers united the 17 provinces, but religious differences drove them apart into the Union of Arras and the Union of Utrecht. Eventually, the 7 Protestant provinces of the Union of Utrecht say goodbye to Philip II under the leadership of William of Orange, who was murdered in 1584. And with the Act of Abjuration in 1581, they declare their independence and a new country is born. Now let's look at what happened after the Dutch Revolt lost its most important leader, William of Orange. I already mentioned the leader of the Catholic Southern Netherlands, the Duke of Parma, who was supported by members of the Union of Arras. Between 1579 and 1588, he conquered large parts of the Low Countries, moving from south to north. During his campaign, Parma managed to conquer the city of Antwerp. Antwerp was the richest and one of the most important cities in the Low Countries. It was one of the biggest, one of the most modern cities in the Low Countries. That same year, 1585, Maurice of Orange, the son of William, officially became the leader of the revolt in the north. He managed to reconquer the cities on the border between the northern and the southern Netherlands. He also managed to keep the Duke of Parma and his army in the south. So slowly we see a sort of border forming between the northern provinces and the southern provinces. And while all this fighting was going on, the Estates General went looking for a new king, because in the minds of the people in the 16th century, a country should and must have a king as the head of their country. The Act of Abjuration meant that the 7 provinces no longer had such a sovereign, a king. The Union made 4 attempts to find a suitable high nobleman or woman who wanted to become king of the Netherlands. First, they asked the French Duke of Anjou, a Catholic who was more interested in partying. The Dutch didn't really trust the French, especially after William was murdered by a French Catholic. William himself was the next candidate and would seem like an obvious choice, but as we know, he was murdered. And so they asked the Protestant Queen of England, Elizabeth I, who refused. I mean, who would want to rule these chaotic provinces? You would never know when they would revolt against you. Side note, Elizabeth was fighting her own war with Philip. England and Spain battled mainly at sea. Elizabeth beat Philip after the famous Spanish Armada, made up of hundreds of warships, was destroyed by a storm and English ships. Anyway, after Elizabeth refused, the Union of Utrecht tried one last time. They gave the Earl of Leicester, named Robert Dudley, a friend of Elizabeth, political and military power. But just like the Spanish soldiers, the English soldiers that he brought with him misbehaved in the provinces. And after 4 tries, the Estates General finally gave up their search and did something which had never been done before. They themselves took up sovereignty, the highest power, instead of giving that power to a king. And so the Republic of the 7 Provinces was born in 1588. Now this new republic was still at war with Spain. And although Maurice of Orange won the famous Battle of Newport in 1600, he failed to reconquer the southern Netherlands. And from that year on, the divide between the northern and the southern Netherlands was more or less permanent. In 1609, after more than 40 years of fighting, the Republic and Spain were tired. They decided to have a ceasefire and made a truce that would last for 12 years, so until 1621. This 12 years truce was the start of the Dutch Golden Age. Obviously, when you don't have to spend all your time, money and resources on warfare, you can spend some on rebuilding your country, on art, on trade, nice things. More and more countries started to recognize the Netherlands as an independent country during this time. After the 12 years truce, so from 1621, war between Spain and the Republic continued. The Dutch were led by another son of William of Orange, Frederik Hendrik. He was known as the conqueror of cities. Frederik Hendrik added large parts of Brabant and Limburg to the Republic, most famously the city of Den Bosch. which was nicknamed the Dragon in the Swamp because it was almost impossible to conquer, but Frederik Hendrik did. As the war with the Republic continued, war against Spain broke out in other places too. In the German parts of the Habsburg Empire, Protestants also began fighting against the Spanish in what we call the 30 Years' War. The English were also fighting side by side with the Dutch Republic at sea and on land, and at the same time France declared war on Spain. Oh, and Portugal also started a war against King Philip IV, the grandson of Philip II. So pretty much all of Europe was at war with each other between 1618 and 1648. In the 1640s, both Spain and the other countries were exhausted and out of money. It was time for a long-lasting peace. Diplomats, politicians, kings, dukes, military leaders and other important men from all over Europe came together in the German province of Westphalia. And in the city of Münster, Spain and the Republic signed the Peace of Münster, putting an end to the 80 Years' War. This was part 2. Thank you for watching and see you next time.